This is where the fun begins.
It is settled then. My wealth will fund the rebellion while Garm provides our fleet and Mon Mothma our soldiers.
An elegant weapon for a more civilized age.
Are you sure? So be it. Did you miss me?
CAF. Lots of it. For me and for the Ready Room. I have a feeling this mission is not one we can fly in our sleep.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Thursday morning's CAF Chat. Back to regular schedule, back to talking New Jedi Order timeline of events. And we are now into the events of Destiny's Way. And also LucasFacts and also Book of the Week. And then we're also going to get into, there's a lot of alsos, right? We're also going to get into Disney's quote unquote success, especially with how Mandalorian and Grogu came out, I guess you could say. It's box office or its popularity, I guess you can say. We've got more popularity. And yeah, we're going to get into also anti-EU rhetoric that these people, even though they're like, oh, we're protecting the word of George Lucas kind of thing, don't realize that they are in tandem with Disney Shields on, it's, I guess you could say, saying what is valid and not, right? Because the whole thing was what Disney Lucasfilm was tossing the EU was to, I guess you can say, solidify their stuff and show how less the EU is. And so I'll say it in those words for now, and we'll keep those thoughts and stuff. And yeah, I was running a little bit late. I'm keeping an ear out on my on the baby. She is napping, and her father was taking a shower, so I'm on duty a bit, and I don't mind, but I just wanted to give that little bit of grace to set up and get integrated into my podcast or my streaming mode, right? So how are you guys doing? Get the stream out, let everybody know we're live. I did share on Discord, I did share on Twitter, and so on and so forth, and also Rumble. This was supposed to be a Rumble exclusive. I just didn't have a time to this week to make the clips or transfer the clips over to the studio of Rumble and stuff like that. And I could have just used StreamYards, but I want to use the studio of Rumble and get familiar with that. So let's look at next week for that. And I will take the time to set all of that up, and get that all taken care of. Yeah, discredit the EU to prop up Disney's trash. Yes. And so all my Rumblists over there that's hanging out on Rumble, hello to you. Good morning. Everybody on YouTube that's coming in, hello and good morning. So why are we talking about this anti-EU or this anti-EU rhetoric that's going on? Because it's still continuing. And there has been I have noticed there has been this trend. Whenever something new comes out with Disney, whether it's quote unquote successful or not, successful Star Wars for Disney is the bar is really, really low. So it's not that great, right? And we'll get into that. But whenever there's something going on with Disney, Star Wars, we get this, oh, the EU wasn't canon. George never liked it. They used appeal to authority, even though this authority that they're using has nothing to do with Disney whatsoever. And he doesn't see the Disney as part of Star Wars in general, whereas he approved that all the materials, that all the media that's made for Star Wars to be canon to the movies or canon to the saga. So we'll get into that more. And yeah, so there's that rhetoric that's going on. And if you keep a good eye on it, you will see this repeat time and time and time again. It's the same thing as Disney Lucasfilm setting up the rhetoric on if there's a backlash to one of their movies or their shows or whatever, that they will gaslight the fans with and call them Easterphobes because fans don't care for it and stuff like that. So they'll get into that rhetoric too. So there's that, but there's also this portion here. And what is amazing is that these people, I'm getting into it already. Let's hold that thought. I'm going to see who's in the chat. Say hello. I have everybody trickling in. I don't have it set up to Twitter because I didn't get the blue check mark on my newer account. So there's that. So Twitter helps bring people in a little bit more, helps bring in the views a little bit more. Excuse me. Let me go ahead and clear my throat. It's a free advertisement for CAF Chat and my channel, but it only is accessible if I get the blue check mark, and I haven't divvied up for that, which I like it because then I can post longer comments and stuff like text when I post, when I comment, all of that. But I have not shield. I can say shield out the money. I haven't given the money and set that up yet. So we have Conrado here from the Philippines. I hope your day is now Shicho. Nice little add to that. Make sure you follow the channel, like the stream, and repost on Rumble. Thanks. Yes, exactly. And I've said this before, and I say this again. And we, like myself and Purist and stuff, we are trying to get Disney. Expose Disney, I guess you could say, but we are our goal is to get Star Wars predominant on Rumble. So opening those doors there. And it is, I would like to say, no, maybe not, but my experience with Rumble, so this is my experience, is it's always been more of a political place to talk politics and stuff like that. And that's fine. But using the platform as another outlet to keep the George Lucas era of Star Wars alive, that's the plan, right? That's the plan. So go over there and also follow Star Wars Marvel Purist and all his channels. I only have one on there, but so follow him, and he's providing great content as well as giving people chances to get the unabridged version of audibles or audiobles of books or novels and what have you, even comics and stuff like that, so that you have a valuable source of original George Lucas era of Star Wars in front of you, you can listen to and support and such. All right. Let's see here. And who else is here? Wolf Scar is here. Soy Koigar. I'm probably butchering that. I am not so good at some pronunciation sometimes. So hello to you. How are you doing? So let's see here. And the backseater, how are you? And then let's see here. Good Jijor effing Jijor Fistine. Oh, morning. What the heck? Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. And then let's see here. I've been trying to come up with a word for people who react the EU because it merely mainly books, comics, and games, and not movies and shows. 86ers. I'm trying to come up with a word for people. You're trying to come up with a word for people who reject the EU. Oh, okay. Anti. I just say anti. It's just cut dry, simple things here. Let's see here. And if you show Lucasfilms employees a picture of New Jedi Order Council, they'd have a heart attack on the race of some of the members. That's interesting to say. We are in a time where, people, want to like this. I want the proper word, but we are hyper fixated on diversity. And I'm not saying this in a bad way. I'm just saying this is just what it is. And the equality, all of this stuff. And, but the thing is, when we come into stories that are fictional and stuff, yeah, it's like, unless it's a human-centric type of tale, and depending where it's at will depend on like what the race and stuff is, so I value the diversity that we have in the world and stuff like that, my people, all of that, but I want authenticity on stories being authentic to their nature. So and that includes race, language, all of that, right? All of that. And then Star Wars is not human-centric. Like, human is just one species of this giant galaxy, this giant universe. And what's crazy is that humans are basically what they would say today, the colonists. Yeah. So if you're going to apply a word of today, of this modern way of like recognizing and labeling something that happened in the past and stuff like that, yeah, they're the colonists. They're the ones who went, and whether good or bad, because if you get into the world of Star Wars or the universe, because it's not just a world, some planets live peacefully with the human race that settled there, and some didn't. And yeah, so there's that. So I appreciate that, but today's age and stuff like that, it's so hyper fixated and stuff like that, that it just, and everybody's so triggered on getting mad about everything because of social media. We're not in front of each other's faces. We're not sitting side by side talking and getting sincere and stuff like that. It's easier to be on the keyboard and say whatever you want without the consequences, I guess you could say. I don't know. It's weird. Like, I value face-to-face conversations more than anything else. And so, yeah, so I went down that road. But the new Jedi Order. So the new Jedi Order, I want to go look up an image that I can use for my thumbnail for the new Jedi Council that we're going to talk about. That's the topic for the events of New Jedi Order in Destiny's Way. This is the first topic in that timeline that we're talking about today. Next week, we're going to get into Viger. Hold on. Let me play something real quick.
Someone asked me to give the best reason why someone should read the expanded universe. After giving it a lot of thought, here's what I have to say. The expanded universe respects the reader. In the expanded universe, Luke Skywalker's optimism continues where it left off in Return of the Jedi. He's fulfilled hope to the galaxy, just like Obi-Wan said he would, not like the Disney movies where he gave up on the Jedi, or even the whole galaxy for that matter. The character you see in those movies is not Luke. Luke isn't a quitter. He's not a pessimist. He's a leader. He's inspirational. And he's always there for his friends in times of need. Another character is Han Solo. He's introduced to us in A New Hope as a loner. a man who cares only for himself and nobody else. But by the end of Return of the Jedi, that all turns around when he finally finds friends he can trust and a true love to spend the rest of his life with. And that's exactly what he does in the expanded universe. Han is a devoted husband and father to Leia and their kids. He loves his family above all else. In the new movies, Han turns out to be a selfish deadbeat dad who ran out on his family when things get tough. It's a complete 180 from the character that we saw from Return of the Jedi. Now, another thing the EU does is it rewards its readers. Attention to detail when it comes to continuity has never been done at such a level as when it was performed by the expanded universe. Avid readers will constantly be rewarded for their diligence as comics, novels, video games, and even children's books share connections throughout the entire series, making it almost a flawless, continuous story. And though it has its minor flaws, it's still the best overall story and continuity out there, period. That's what the EU does. It respects and rewards its readers. And that's the best reason you should give it a try. Long live the expanded universe.
All right. Long live the expanded universe. Okay, so sorry, I had to step away real quick to take care of something, but it's all good. All right. So when I was looking up the new Jedi Order, new Jedi Council search here on the computer, what happened? And this is something you'll notice now more and more and more. I guess you could say the proposed Rey's new Jedi Order, all the information popped up with that from the past advertisements of that and stuff. So you'll get a lot of that, which is crazy because I'm looking up the new Jedi Council for the new Jedi Order for Destiny's Way, and all of this Rey stuff pops up. So crazy. That shit is crazy. That shit is crazy. All right, let's see here. Let's see here. We have hello, how are you doing, Cell Site? Calcite, cell site. I'm just renaming. And Discrepant, how are you doing? I see you. And Chio as well. Hello. And let's see here. I'm saying hello to everybody right now, going through the chat. Let me see here. What are you trying to say is authenticity? I get you. Yes. Authenticity. Yeah. All right. Sometimes my brain goes fast, and then so my speech goes fast with it. It's just my thinking process, and so I have to slow that shit down. Let's see here. And let's see here. Calcite says, "Oh yeah, the general race of the are the Earthlings. To me, there are three types of Earthlings: human types, which is us; animal types; and monster types, which may or may not exist." Let's see here. And Andor is Disney's way. Top appeal to the conservative. What? To the conservatives? What? Top appeal to conservatives? I don't know about that. What do you guys think? Is top appeal to the conservatives? Say that to these Disney shills. They'll probably have a big, huge connection fit because, a lot of these are anti people who are conservative, I guess you can say. I don't know. The entire point of diversity is to have all people come together and share our love and passion of Star Wars despite coming from opposite backgrounds. Now it's not nothing but a tool to exclude white folks. And that's a thing too. So diversity, what is that? Now growing up and, Gen Xer, sharing my age, I guess you can say in a sense, or my generation. There was experience wise, we just all played. We all got along on the playground mostly. Um, and we just played, we just hung out, or whatever. So this diversity thing of today, I don't know. Um, is there stuff that needs to be settled with it? Maybe. Did we go and swing to the far side of the other side of the pendulum? Yes, we did. And so I'm not trying to make this into this thing of like what is diversity and how it does affect us and stuff like that. But just experience growing up. Yes, I did. There is racism. I did experience it growing up. But that's something that wasn't a predominant thing. But I do know like some cousins who grew up on the reservation in South Dakota that was a predominant thing for them when they left the reservation. So exposure to maybe, but when you get into lore, get into a franchise like Star Wars, it goes beyond that. It goes beyond that, and it shares about inclusion, right? Like Anakin Skywalker. When Padme was sharing, like talking with him, and he basically says, declares that he is a somebody. He is a somebody. When she was like, "Are you a slave or something?" Now I'm paraphrasing, right? And he's like, "I'm not blah blah blah. I'm a somebody." So he's declaring that he is not of the experience that he grew up with, that he is someone. And I think that's a great message for everybody. We're not the experience that we grew up with. That builds character and stuff. Yes, it does. But in reality, we're not that. We are someone. We are and if we can go with that type of message, that is pretty cool. That is pretty cool. And Open Air Like Policy is here. What's up? How are you doing? And howdy to you. Hanging out on the Rumble side. My Rumble is over there. And again, I will have everything set up, I promise, on Rumble for next CAF chat. For our next CAF chat. Let's see here. And we're back to Jim Crow era. Expect the whites are the slave and the DIEI plantation farmer. I don't know. I don't like any of it, really. I don't, because you don't fix something by doing the same thing that happened to you. It just doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make fucking sense. Growing up, it wasn't just white kids that like Star Wars. My half Hispanic dad was a fan when he read the novelization before the first movie came out. Thank you for sharing that. That's freaking amazing. Not many people realize that the movie novel came out before the movie. The movie was opened up with the experience of the novel first, but did everybody have the novel? No. Or get the novel? No. And yeah, so that's again the movie, the franchise opening experience was the novel than the movie. But the novel and the movie, because George shared the script, the working script before he made changes for the movie. So you have like a blue Yoda and stuff like that. So crazy, all crazy. And Bunt's book is here. What up? How are you doing? Let's see here. I value the Diversity Alliance. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Let's see here. And let's see. The experience helps forge us, but doesn't have to define who we are. Exactly. Exactly. And I'm Native American Filipino. A little bit of white, and like French and Spanish, I guess you could say. And and a woman, and I love Star Wars. Now, did I have people tease me for it? Yeah, there was always, back in the day, there was a like, "Oh, you're a nerd" kind of thing, and that's just how it was, right? But that's now it's cool to be a nerd. Now it's overrated. Now people are appropriating that, so there we go. All right, and let's see here. Speaking of diversity in Star Wars, I made a youngling clan and made sure to add various aliens in it. Oh, almost like the Mandalorian culture, where you have the culture, but as long as you are raised in it or brought into it and you are taught the values of that culture and how to live, amongst and with it and stuff. Very, very cool. And that's the thing too. And talking about this diversity, people like think that Star Wars never had it before under George Lucas. But then when you get into the Mandalorians, like when you get into the language basically is neutral. So Babu Weir, for example, I'm going to throw this word out, Babu Weir, which is grandma or grandpa. So when you look at the relationship words to, your grandparents and your mother and your father, or your parents and stuff, it's gender neutral. You call them both the same thing. And it's fucking fabulous. And so when people use this, oh, well, Star Wars was never diverse. And then also George used stereotypes when he created like Jar Jar and stuff like that. They're fucking full of shit. It's like they go one way where, oh, there's no diversity. And then they go the other way of George is racist. And I'm like, do you even fucking know the lore? Do you even fucking know what you're talking about in general? No, I think not. You're just over here because you just want to get upset over something and you're making something out of nothing. And you're taking these journalist review articles that came out before the movie premiered, because that did happen back in the day. And I think on my old Twitter account, I shared one of the first reviews of The Phantom Menace before the movie premiered. And the journalist, she was basically, saying that Jar Jar is a stereotype and calling George a racist. So who do you think baited these so-called fans? And yes, social media wasn't predominant. Internet was still in its infant stages. So the influence was more or less media, like not per se on the internet, more or less in front of like in papers and magazines and stuff like that. But that's another topic for another time. But anyways, yeah, so we have all of that. And that goes into the anti-EU rhetoric as well, but we'll get into more of that. Let's go ahead and get into our next coming segments here, our little ones here, and move further on so we can get into our lore talk. And I'll even show, talking about diversity, if you look at even the new Jedi Council that Luke forms in the new Jedi Order, Destiny's Way timeline, it's not only Jedi, but it's not only human Jedi, right? You also have people from the Galactic Alliance on the council at that time frame. It's only during that time frame and it served its purpose. We'll get more into that. Many people don't really talk about Luke's formation of the Jedi Council, or the High Jedi Council. We only talk about more or less the new Jedi Order, but we'll get into what we're going to get into. So, with that being said, speaking of the lore and books and novels, let's go ahead and get into our books of the week. Our book of the week. All right.
I hate to say it, but it looks like
Story.
the item you're searching for doesn't exist.
Impossible. Perhaps the archives are incomplete.
If an item does not appear in our records, it does not exist.
It does not exist. So let's get into this here. So usually I begin with the first installment and book. First installment of like a series and stuff. But I decided that I'm going to break my little rule here and I'm going to get into the 501st. So the Imperial Commando and go from there. So we have Imperial Commando, the 501st, the writer, Karen Travis, cover, and speaking of Mandalorians, right? Karen Travis, one of the major architects to the Mandalorian culture, lore, and language. Published October 2009, and the timeline 19 BBY. So who has read this book? And what are share with me, what are your thoughts on the book? Share in the comments there. I'm going to let you know a little bit of continuity notes that I drew down here, or not drew, but you know what I mean. I've added my cats. I did not feed them, and one is not knocking shit off my windowsill and stuff. But anyways, if you heard that crash, that's what's going on. All right, continuity notes. The book drew its title from the 501st Legion of Customers, a fan group founded in 1997. But it goes deeper than that. The 501st Legion was first mentioned in Survivor's Quest by Timothy Zahn. So basically, Timothy Zahn got the idea, and then Karen Travis brought it in and expanded on it a little bit more. And this is a fan base group. They designed their own armor and all of that stuff. You know, and I always thought they were cool. I did until I got until I interacted with one person, and it's funny. The person was anti-EU. It's kind of ironic, right? Kind of ironic. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Let me see here. Let's see here. The expanded universe has Mandalorians that had species that weren't limited to the human types, correct? Karen Travis's Mandalorians is the true way. And I wish there was a video game of that. Oh, that would have been very interesting. No thoughts in the book, hadn't read them. Okay, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. I'll get to you, Wolfscar. Hold on. We're mad that we didn't get any Imperial Commando game. And I have been a minute though, but I recall liking it. Wow, people really dog on Travis for being so against Jedi, but it can't be denied what she did for the Mandalorians, really expanding upon them. And the thing is with that, that's people's general arguments against her, or hatred against her, is her view on Jedi and how she had these clones and Mandalorians perceive the Jedi, which is fair because the Mandalorian culture, and then a lot of these clones were trained by Mandalorians. So yes, that's going to pick up on, that's going to be an influence, right? But Mandalorian culture, they don't have good standings with Jedi. And that goes even with Jango Fett, who and his experience, with them as well. And so that's where that stems from. I don't care, because Jedi are supposed to be the heroes, but there's always going to be someone opposing the hero, right? There's always going to be opposition, and opposition doesn't have to be Sith. And these views can be their experience with them. And, but from there, you have that. And I don't see nothing wrong. I don't know. Maybe you agree with me. Maybe you don't. I think it gives a new outlook and take and flavor to Star Wars, because if everything remained the same and everybody's like, oh, kumbaya and Jedis are amazing and stuff like that, that would be a fucking boring story, right? You're always going to get opposition, even against the protagonist. You're always going to get people who are praising the antagonist as well. So there's those two. And I'm not talking about gray sides, this versus light and dark, and then there's gray sides and villainy and all this other stuff. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying that there's generally going to be people that are not going to believe, because maybe of propaganda or their experience, that the so-called good guys, the heroes of the galaxy, blah, 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 are really what they are. So we have that. Let me see what you're going to say here. Nah, I agree, OG, on that. Oh, and I also did some community posts for the Mandalorians if anyone wants to look, see. Oh, cool. Okay. then again, the Jedi Order was trapped within the Clone Wars that are orchestrated by Sidious. But people in universe did not know that yet, correct? And he manipulated the galaxy once Order 66 happened, and he made his speech and declared the Empire. People believed what he had to say. What happened? Now, was there truth behind it? Yeah, there's a little bit of truth. Mace Windu went over there to arrest him. It turned into, basically let's kill him kind of thing. But Palpatine didn't share why, right? So there's always some truth behind something, right? So there you go. Let's see here. I prefer the original Mandalorian cult or lore in the EU. So do I. Filoni's version of Mandalorians versus Travis's version of Mandalorians. Correct. I need some custom emojis. Yes. Need some. That's what you say. Yeah. I do need to update my emojis, and I will put them up again. I will update everything on Rumble. I just haven't done it yet. I know I'm slacking, severely slacking on that end. Sorry, you guys. Sorry. Like the EU elitists, and someone, I got blocked by, I guess you could say, George Lucas Purist, which it's funny. Purist, right? Purist. We're all purists in something, right? I guess. But the person who declares George's word is the say, all of that, but then again ignores something George says when it comes to the EU that is more positive and showing its canon, so the hypocrisy there blocked me. And his handle is Lucas Legacy. Blocked me. Called me an EU elitist as if that's a bad word. And then also a liar. But that it is what it is. And then he blocked me, so I couldn't reply back. Isn't that rich? I mean, no balls whatsoever. I have scissors right here. Just cut the balls off if he asked me. Or maybe I did. Maybe I cut his balls off and that's why he had to block me. I don't know. Like I said before, my balls are bigger. All right. Let's see here. I've read a bit of Hero of the Confederacy. It astounds me that we did not get a glimpse of it on the Confederacy angle. We literally have a separatist answer to Anakin Skywalker. Not much done there. All right. And there's a lot of things that could have been expanded on, written about, but the buyout. And yeah. So let's see here. All right. And I never liked the idea of clones being controlled by implants. Yeah. They're like, how in the hell can genetically they alter these clones genetically, the people who are pro-chip, right? How can they control these beings genetically? Doesn't make sense. It makes more sense with the chip. And my argument with that is the Caminoans or whatever, that was their brilliance. Cloning was their brilliance. And by them now reduced to like, we need a chip for you to control that our work and our genetic alter doesn't cut it, devalues them as these geniuses, these scientific cloning geniuses, right? And whether or not it was given by George to do a chip, that's a debate we can do there. I stand on the ground that it was Filoni's idea and then George just went ahead with it. But until I can prove otherwise or whatever, it is what it is, right? but it takes the brilliance out of the cloners. It does. And it's even shown on Attack of the Clones that they're confident in what they did. Yeah. So that's where I stand on that. I stand firmly on that. Just like I stand firmly that I think it was a stupid idea to bring Maul back. Now, yes, George said bring Maul back, and then he let Filoni take the reins on that. Do I agree still with it, or do I not agree because Filoni was the architect of Maul's return, that he built the story? No, I disagree with George on the pretense of just saying bring Maul back, because that takes away the arc, the brilliant arc of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and his ascension, or his, being promoted to Jedi Knight and taking on a Padawan, and what it meant for him during that time. And so I stand on that. All right, let's see here. The Kaminoans were perfectionists. They had 10 years. They worked with the very building blocks of life. Yes, and when they did that, if there was a defect or anything, they would eliminate the clone. And the null arcs are the example, basically, because they were a quote unquote defect, and they were put on the chopping block, I guess you can say. And Cal Scarata stood up for them and said nope. And so they became this elitist type group, I guess you can say. And they have their wonderful story arc behind that. I'm not going to get into it right now, but they're just one example of that, like of the cloners. Basically, like if they didn't turn out the way they needed to be, they eliminated them, right? And the null arcs are evidence of that, even though they weren't eliminated, right? So they were the ones, the exception to the rules, I guess you can say. And so let me read further on this. They worked with the very building blocks of life, but they needed a chip for a specific order instead of being imprinted like everyone else. Yeah, so that's that too. I get it. Questioning the chip for a specific order when they were genetically predispositioned to take an order without question. Without question. And that's even in the Attack of the Clones. So again, I stand on my hill about the chip. How I don't agree with it. How it takes away the brilliance of the cloners, right? Let me see here. All right. And let's see here. No, having the chip makes clones who do disobey much better as characters. And speaking of that, myself with Raging Rhino was on Purist Rumble channel talking Sith. We were specifically just yapping away about the Dark Lord Rise of Darth Vader novel. And there are clones that disobeyed, but to an extent. They told the Jedi, we'll let you go. We're questioning the orders, right? We're questioning. We're like confused about this. But if we see you, next time we see you, we do have to eliminate you. So there's that. There is that. All right. Like this pilot in the comic rescued by a ship smuggling younglings, when he picked up, he didn't tell the other clones. Yeah. Let's see here. But I guess after 10 years, they can't grow a soldier worth bantha fodder. Yeah, it's fucking crazy. Like the demise of the clones and stuff like that, and the brilliance of like what George was essentially creating and the EU picked up on, right? To now all this falling to shits for TCW. And I like the path they were gonna go, which Matt Wilkins basically was talking with and had a somewhat of a confirmation that TCW was going to be in some way, shape, or form propaganda. But anyways, and then the company walked it back. And I think they walked it back because of the buyout, but who knows? So here we go. The EU clones are nameless grunts. Then Filoni clones gave them names. Well, the EU clones did have names, and it shared, like Obi-Wan gave a name to his commander. Yeah, so that's interesting though. I get what you're saying. Let's see here. Did we have any doubts, any private traitorous thoughts, perhaps, but no one said a word, not on the flight to Coruscant, not when Order 66 came down, and not when we marched into the Jedi Temple. Yes. Yeah. And if you guys haven't heard or listened to these like journalistic thoughts that I was on, is it Battlefront, right? But anyways, yeah, feel free to go and look it up. Now, I haven't seen none of my mods here today, so hopefully everything's okay with them. Real Boba Fett escaped Sarlacc pit that like gangsta, and fake Boba Fett is a Sarlacc pit's bitch. Yep. Let's see here. Landing on Dexun in KOTOR 2, the Sith Lord is one of the best world building sequences in the entire expanded universe, as you are taken to the Mandalorian camp and see how they operate. There you go. And like I said, my weak spots within the EU or the entire George Lucas era of Star Wars is the gameplay. So I'll take your word on that. Many people, I've heard a lot of things, good things, or a lot of things about KOTOR 1 or 2. And I'm like, damn, I just wish I had the time. I have the game. I just need to play. OG, I don't think it was George's idea. We only have that one statement from Dave. There's not no other actual word from George about it being his idea to bring back Maul. So I'm kind of suspect on that. Yeah. I like to research and stuff, and now it's getting harder and harder to find things because of the algorithms influencing Disney Star Wars. And also too, like there's one interview of George Lucas, and it's about TCW, and it has like the background has like the banner of TCW behind him, and stuff like that, and he's wearing a blue button-up shirt, something classic that he wears all the time. And basically he's like, yeah, I'm getting Dave started, and then I'm going to step away. I'm paraphrasing now. And he basically says, yeah, I'm going to do season 1 or 2 or 3. I forget which one it was. And then I'm stepping away and, and stuff. And now I can't find that video. I've shared it here on the early years of the channel under Disney Star or George Lucas era. When I transformed this channel for specifically that. But I should go back and find it that way. Maybe I can find it that way. And I did share it out, but I can't find that anymore. And it's quite telling that there's some things that it's hard to look and search up when it comes to pro EU or even I wouldn't say George stepping away to do his own things and leaving Filoni to head the company or TCW, the animation department and stuff, because he was acting supervisor, right? And director and stuff like that. But I wouldn't say that would be anti-TCW, but it's just basically where George stood. And you could say, and I've heard many people say this before, how George interacted for TCW's development is basically how he interacted for the EU in general. So there you go. Whether you agree with me or not, Look it up. He wasn't even brought up in the mall featurette when they discussed bringing him back. It all just seems so deflecting. I'm gonna have to rewatch that again. Really, I am. It's been a while since I've, went back and researched some things and all of that. Let's see here. And brainwashing is more realistic than a potato chip up their head. Okay. And let's get into here with Wolf, or if they had to bring him back, why not clone him? That would have been very interesting. You keep the original Maul intact. You don't undercut Obi-Wan's victory and character growth either. That would be interesting because like the game, the Battle of the Sith, when LucasArts told Red Fly or whatever, the game developers that maybe they should look into Darth Talon because there's rumors that George liked Darth Talon. Now, reviewing, like going back and rereading the interview and basically dissecting everything that has been said in there, LucasArts gave Red Fly the heads up or suggested that they should use Talon. Now, George knows Talon from Legacy, right? And he is known to pick up the comics and read them because he's a very visual person. He likes the visual arts more than anything else. And so comics is right up his alley. He co-owned a comic store, and he loved the arts in comics. He loves the stories in comics, right? So he's a very visual person. We know that. And then so when finally the developers got to meet with LucasArts, like go to LucasArts and start developing the game, they they're like, they're telling them, don't talk about Force Unleashed, blah, 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 blah. They're giving them the heads up to keep things, I guess you can say, more fluid in their conversation about the game and stuff like that with George Lucas. And so they set up the office, they set up the meeting room, the office with, figures. And one of the figures was Darth Talon. So when George Lucas walked in and they were going to start talking to him about the development and stuff, he's seen Darth Talon's figure and was like, hey, she is friends with him. And, he put Darth Talon next to Maul and basically was like, build something with this. Right. And so LucasArts suggested that to Red Fly. They then decided, well, we're going to use her figure as something like a visual here as we meet. Now, if Darth Talon was not put on the table during the meeting as a figure and stuff like that, just to have like the essence of Star Wars and stuff like that, would there have been a game in development with Darth Talon and Maul? Something to think about. Would George have proposed that? Something to think about. Maybe, maybe not. So that's something to think about. All right, let's see here. I bet Filoni resurrected the dead Null clones and renamed them. Yeah, that's what it seems like. Like there's a lot of themes that surround them that really mirrors the Null arcs. You'll find that they are totally obedient. We modified their genetic structure to make them less independent than the originals, of course. Yes. Yes. All right, let's see here. From the Attack of the Clones novel and movie, makes much more sense that the clones were the Clone Wars series. I agree. All right, and all right, let's see here. And let's see, we got the Quiet Drawer 66 here. 2005 Battlefront 2 is true peak. And how are you doing? Yeah. Oh no. Okay. There we go. Yes, everybody's agreeing here. And we have our Vato here. And you know what? I'm going to risk, I don't but I'm going to play this anyways. So, boop, 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 boop. Where is it? Here is to the homies, the Vato coming in, my mod.
Hey, this is going out to all the homies.
Yeah. This is for the raza. Yeah.
You trying to get crazy with this thing? Don't you know I'm loco?
Don't you know I'm loco? Yeah. All right. Let's see here. So, got on a little bit of off, I wouldn't say tangent, but we got into a lot of like PT lore, Mandalorians, cloning, all of that. So let's get into our Lucas facts. So Lucas facts. And then we'll get into our new Jedi Order discussion. Going back, we're getting back on track with the new Jedi Order events, and we are in Destiny's Way. And we're going to talk about the new Jedi Council. Now, I forgot to write on who was all on that council, so I just know a few names, but that was formed. But we'll get into that here pretty soon. So where is my clip? Where is the clip? Here we go.
That's great.
It's going to be great.
That's going to be great.
It's going to be great.
That's going to be great.
Lucas facts, and I still have to put it up on my media assets. It's there. I got my shit straight. I just don't have it on here. Let me see here. But here we go. Here we go. Let me go ahead and upload it real quick. And oh, here we go. All right. All right. So here it is. This is an interview with Daniel Wallace on writing the Jedi Path, time, and it's in the Time interview, August 24th, 2010. Officially, everything in the Star Wars publishing universe is canon, though George Lucas retains creator privilege to override anything he wants. Lucasfilm employs a keeper of the holocron, namely Leland Chi, to keep it all straight. In this, Star Wars is unique from most other franchises. I know I can read. DC, for example, keeps the Batman comic separate from the Dark Knight movie and Arkham Asylum, the video game. So they're comparing on how unique Star Wars is as a franchise with one single canon or one single continuity, right? We have that. And that's what we're talking about is the synchronicity of the lore, right? And everything expands off the movies. The movies are basically the foundation, and anti-EU people don't realize that the movies are the foundation. George has rights to everything, rights to change his mind on lore concepts, which he basically changed some stuff for the special edition OT. And one of the biggest arguments that I've encountered is Han shooting first and why George Lucas decided to do that, where everybody loved the fact that Han can take, Han basically takes control of the matter and is up front and eliminates the threat, right? The threat. Whereas George Lucas is like, no, I don't want that anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and change him because, he's getting married to Leia. They're going to do a relationship. He's getting with the princess and stuff. And so I don't want him to be a thug. I want him to be a hero. So basically, I'm paraphrasing, but I did share that recently on Twitter, that quote of his, that and stuff like that. So he changed that because of the fact that he thinks that he looks less of a heroic character shooting first. And then also he brought in EU to like A New Hope. like the Mos Eisley Cantina scene, or Mos Eisley Cantina scenes where they go to Mos Eisley Cantina, you see swoop racers, you see the swoop bikes, you see some animals or species or beasts that are from the EU. You have the Outrider that was specifically designed for Dash Rendar, because Dash Rendar was basically like, their focus is like, oh, he's going to be like a hand figure, because Han Solo was basically in carbonite at this point. So he's going to be like this Han figure. And so from that, the creator of the story met with ILM and said, can you make this ship look like, I think he said the A-Wing or B-Wing, one of those two, mated with the Falcon or something like that. I think I got the ship wrong. I think it was the A-Wing or whatever. And design the ship. So it's like the Falcon, but not, so it looks very similar, and it comes from the same manufacturer. So there you go. And so you have George Lucas basically, not only with the special editions, linking them continuity wise to the PT, like, you have the Return of the Jedi celebrations at the end where you see, like Coruscant and stuff like that, and people celebrating. You see Naboo and all this other. So linking those scenes, linking the continuity wise between the movies and the EU. And then you see, like with the PT, the prequel trilogies, the world building that is submersive with EU stuff as well. And so you have this beautiful synergy that creates this wonderful canon, the single continuity. And George Lucas did get a world record for the most books tied to the movies or extended from the movies. No franchise has ever done that yet. And this is evidence here because you have DC, for example, keeping Batman comics separate from Dark Knight's movie. And you have like Marvel and DC having multiple universes. Star Wars isn't that. And it took people like Leland Shee, but even before he came on board in 2000, there was also this keeping of continuity, which all this continuity was being recorded in what is called the Bible. The Bible evolved to the Holocron under Leland. So there's that evolution there of keeping continuity, keeping everything straight. And was there hiccups? Oh, hell yeah, there was. Like George Lucas wasn't really decided on exactly when the dates of the Clone Wars or the PT era landed. So because of that, and at the time, they're like, oh, maybe it happened between 30 to 35, years after the Thrawn trilogy was written. That's where Thrawn or Zahn basically, used the timeline. That's how he used it. And then when George decided to really solidify exactly when that era came about, there was a small little hiccup gap there. And so, of course, then Leland and others, like even this is before Leland, Thrawn trilogy was before Leland. So those prior to Leland had to correct so that those works didn't become non-canon. And that's what retconning is. Retconning's not always bad. Retconning keeps a continuity in line with each other, right? And so you have that. Let me see here. I never really mind that Han and versus Greedo changed. It was just kind of meh for me. Yeah, some people are like, it is what it is. Some people are like adamant about that because that character persona of Han was this bravado. I wouldn't say bravado. That sounds more egotistic, right? But he was more of this like, I don't take shit kind of person, right? Let's see here. I mean, Han is a smuggler. He's not portraying himself as some ruthless killer. No. And that's another thing too. His morals are tough, lax, sure, and maybe selfish, but it's not like he's cold-hearted. Yeah. And I can understand the complaints about Greedo shooting first, but ultimately it's irrelevant as the screenplays plays out fast enough that it doesn't matter. Greedo still dies in the end. So who is here for Han shooting first? Put a 1 in the chat. I just want to know. It's not like I'm going to say, oh, I hate you. No, because you know me, I'm like, it is what it is. It was never a big like argument factor for me to why George Lucas is bad and blah, 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 blah. And people use that against George too. Oh, he's so bad. Let's see here. Leland fell to the dark side, unfortunately, when he sided with Disney. Yeah, he was one of them that was able to keep the job after or through the buyout. So George Lucas also set up precedents on who can keep their jobs as the transition happened. Some people decided to leave, some people stayed on. I think a lot of the retconning could have been avoided if Lucas didn't have so many yes men around him. Remember the mall game developer saying before the meeting he was told not to ask questions. Yes. McClunky. All right. What's the building in the 1997 Return of the Jedi Coruscant scene before the Jedi Temple? I think that's the Imperial... that would be the Imperial Palace, maybe? There was always the Jedi Temple there on Coruscant, I believe. I mean, I think didn't Palpatine inhabit it too at one point? Why did Luke scream in the 1990 special edition? All right. So with that being said, and we're talking about the OT, Luke Skywalker, and all this stuff, let's go ahead and get into, and let me go ahead and get into my files here so I can pull up the image, because I didn't make a PDF, not a PDF. I didn't make a PowerPoint imagery here for you guys. Didn't. Let me see here. New council. This is the one I'm looking for. But I do have an image I'm going to put up. So with that being said, where is it? Oh, there we go. We go. All right. And I like visuals when I can and I have the opportunity. And share screen. Window. Here we go. All right. So the new Jedi Order, Destiny's Way timeline. Back to that. And I'm excited. I've been waiting to get her done. Now, talking about diversity, we have a diverse council here, or at least diverse image of Jedi. Have a woman. We have 2 non-human species and then 3 human species. And this goes back to our talk about diversity in Star Wars. Like, diversity in Star Wars is not necessarily diversity in our real world here, in a sense, because we're looking at this fictional galaxy or universe that, yeah, we can relate to, because there's people living experiences that, you know, might be like the outcome or the way they perceive it might be what we experience in a sense. But the diversity is completely different. Completely different. But in a good way. It doesn't have to be about human race and the races within the human race, right? This is about a broader prospect of diversity. And we have to get away from the humanness when we get into Star Wars. Star Wars is basically a franchise that allows you to escape from reality in a sense, right? Hey, let's see here. OG are using Shakun's vision over New Jedi Order. OG. Let's see here. I like how cloning Jedi in the EU was set up far better than this canon. That right there. That is a compare and contrast. Cloning in itself, once Disney took over, cloning in itself versus under George Lucas era. And we got into a huge discussion about how brilliant the Camonians, I fucking always have a hard time with that word. You guys know that, know the history of that word with me. But they are brilliant. They are brilliant. So this new Jedi Order, Destiny's Way. Now, we have the Galactic Alliance forming. So again, remember, I have said this in the past, that the New Republic will fall, and we watched it fall, and a new, I guess you could say, governing entity will rise. And that's the Galactic Alliance. So we have the Galactic Alliance that formed, and they are stationed basically on Mon Calamari. That is the home base for them now, because Coruscant now has been taken over by the Vong, the Yuuzhan Vong. And they're having elections. They're getting their act straight. They need to have their elections to elect their next, I guess you could say, president or whatever, that's the title or whatever. I probably got it totally wrong. Over the years, it went from president to like chancellor and all this other stuff. Head of state is another one. And but they need their next leader. And so Cal Omos is in the race, and you know the Jedi do favor him because his opposing candidates are anti-Jedi. And we have that anti-Jedi, and I can't wait till after we're done with Destiny's Way to get into the Ulyssia. I guess it's called Ulyssia. It's a story that basically was supposed to be a part of the New Jedi Order, but it didn't. But it was published, and you can get it. I guess you could have downloaded it at the time, and that gets into how the Vong accepted Thraken Sal Solo as the leader of the Peace Brigade, or something like that. But anyways, so I will get into that part of the timeline here after we're done with Destiny's Way with Wom. And but that's later on. That's after this timeline of Destiny's Way. So we have the new Jedi Council forming. And on top of that, we're having this publicity stunt. This is what I see it as. A publicity stunt by Kel Omos to show off the Jedi and what they're about. And what I mean by that is the knighting of the young knights, that like Jaina, Jason, and all of them. Destiny's Way, similar to Edge of Victory, Conquest was surprise reread for me. I forgot just how awesome that book was. 2 biggest surprises reread so far. Nice. And so yes, I call that the knighting. And I know I think I might have been on conversation with Matt, but I've also heard him talk about this conversation, this basic continuity error, I guess you could say error of the, like Jaina and all them were knighted at the end of Young Jedi Knights, right? Or like towards the end. But then again, they're knighted here. But when you read the book, Cal Omos is using it as a publicity stunt. He's like, yeah, the galaxy needs to see the knighting and all this. Yeah. So the new Jedi Council was formed not only with selected members of individuals by Luke from the Council, the Jedi Order, the new Jedi Order, basically, but also from leaders of the Galactic Republic. And this was to bridge and create a council that shows that the Jedi Order basically is for and will work with the Galactic Alliance during this time frame. Because there's a lot of people opposing, even those who are high political officials, opposing the Jedi themselves. And I find it funny because we were just talking about how people hated Karen Travis for her anti-Jedi view and how she had the clones perceive them. But then here we have like the Peace Brigade, and we have like political officials that are opposing the Jedi too. Isn't that kind of ironic? Or I would say more hypocrisy. More of a hypocrisy. And so I find that very interesting because, oh boy, were people like, oh, I fucking hate Karen Travis, blah, blah. And you know what? And I love Matt Wilkins. He doesn't care for her either. And I can be friends with people who I disagree with. That's the Gen Xer in me, right? People nowadays can't do that. They can't be friends, or they can't have a conversation even though they disagree, without getting all pissy and stuff like that. So yeah, so we have, you know, these political individuals, some of them not liking the Jedi. And this morning, what book is right after Destiny's Way? Not the short story Ulysses one, but let me see here. I know it's the trilogy. What's the name? Oh yeah, so the next one after that, like in the order without going to that short story that we're going to review too, is by Shane and Sean, and it's The Force Heretic Remnant. And so I was listening to that this morning, because I was reviewing Destiny Way real quick on Audible, and then the next one in line is that. It had got into the scene of Pelion, and I'm going to share a clip on Twitter, and maybe I'll make a little video out of it, but an EU clip out of that. But basically, there's one scene where Pelion is basically like saying, you know, he's putting his foot down, saying we need to, you know, work with the Galactic Alliance because, you know, we have a common theme, common, I guess you could say, enemy, and we can't survive without uniting. And you have a Moff that is basically like, we don't want to go there. How are we going to give up our rights and stuff because we're working with them and blah, blah, you know, just going off on Pelion. And he is calm as can be. Excellent writing about Pelion with this. Holy crap. Excellent. Like Pelion in this whole novel. Holy shit. Like the chef's kiss, right? And so basically he's like, if you don't, he was like, I am threatening you. He's telling them off. And if you don't agree, I'm going to take the military with me. I'm going to leave. I'm going to take the military with me. So he threatens him and stuff like this. And he's like, given a good case, like, if we don't unite with the Galactic Alliance, it's going to be our demise. If we continue to fight against them, we're fighting a hopeless cause. And so he's given this whole speech and stuff like that. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. I love it. And one thing I liked about that towards the end of that whole conversation is the Moff clinic or whatever his name is, Frennick or something like that. You know, he raises the gun and he attempts to shoot Pelion. And from there, Jason wants to use the Force to defend Pelion, and Luke holds him back. And someone does use the Force to push the gun away, push the gun away out of his hands as she fired. And it was Mara Jade. And Mara Jade's standing next to Pelion, and she's like, I once, you know, you're not the only one that worked for the Emperor. I did too. And we all changed. And so she goes on to this whole nice, I wouldn't say speech, but she made a huge point about how people can change for the better and stuff like that. And for the people around them for a greater cause and stuff like that. So I will share that clip later. So I know I went past Destiny Ways and went to that because, you know, that's what I was listening to earlier today too. Let's see how popular that'll be. Box office tickets ratings on platform nil so far. Oh, you guys are talking about The Mandalorian Grogu. I'm so cool with people who have differing views. For example, me and Captain Keeley have practically popular opposite views on The Force Unleashed. Yeah. And it's fine. And that's what that's about, right? And I don't care for Disney Star Wars, and I will say that, and I will tease about it, and I have a strong opinion about that. And if I see some things, I'll call it out. So what? bad news for Disney. There's a Krispy Kreme donut sorted because Kathy ain't D no more. All right, there no more. I just remembered I have the Jedi core centric book called Riptide. I read only part of it. Oh yeah. But they're so good. But there's good news. No more donuts mean people losing weight. I don't know. I don't know. Thank you for the laugh. All right. So this new council, this new Jedi Council. So new Jedi Order, new Jedi Council, and it's about creating the unity and for what is needed during that time frame, the invasion, the war, protecting the people, showing the people that the Jedi and the politicians can work together for the betterment and for the security of what's going on. Damn, now I want a donut. Damn, now I want a donut. Yeah. So we have Luke creating that. He puts himself on the council too, and rightfully so. And this council, I believe, does dissolve towards the end of the series, and a new council arises after afterwards during the Darkness trilogy. What happens is that Luke was trying to, stretch further beyond the structure of the order and having his Jedi, basically do what they feel is right according to the Force, which makes kind of sense in a way, but not necessarily, because they still need to be unified, right? There still needs to be unification. And so there's two factions. You have Cornhorns and Kip Duran's factions butting heads with that and stuff like that. And from there, Luke had to step up, put his foot down, and he needed to unite the knights. And so he declared himself the Grand Master, which I think was needed because he is the founder of the new Jedi Order. He is, the one who came in and restructured the Jedi for the good. So he's the highest seniority, if you want to call it that. And with that, he created the new High Council. Now, the new High Council, so I'm just giving a history of the councils here. The new High Council basically is just all Jedi. All Jedi. And so you have the perspective like Mara Jade and Sigol and Corn Horn, Kip Duran, Kyle Katarn, and Saba Sabatine, I believe. I could be missing someone. No, Leo wasn't on that because she just barely became a knight during that time frame, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. And then, so the evolution of this council, when you get to Legacy Comics, it is called the Masters Council. And so you have like some of the Skywalkers on there and so forth. And then some of the Jedi that survived to the PT and stuff like that on there. So you have that. So that's the evolution of the council there. So I just wanted to give some homage, or I wanted to pay respect to this developing new Jedi Council within the timeline. Next week, we're going to get more into Vergere. Yep. Into the dark Jedi essence of Vergere and stuff like that. That's going to be the agenda for the events during that time. I posted more about that on Twitter as well. So, yeah. So let me see. Have you guys read Destiny's Way? Let me know what you think about it. Let's see here. The Force is female, and you can have one donut. One donut. Let's see here. Like Anakin Skywalker. I blew up the Death Star, right? Right? Hello. Bring your lotion green dolts. Yeah, bring the lotion green dolts. So there you go. There we go. And so the new High Council, it's about the unity and stuff like that. And I'm anxious to get into the next novel, that in-between novel, Ulysses, talking about the Peace Brigade even more. So that's still predominant during that time. And you have a few moths that are anti this unity of with Pelion and the Galactic Republic. You have politicians who are anti-Jedi, and this unity of this council with the Jedi and the politicians and stuff like that. And what is very interesting is that, you know, speaking of the Luke and the new Jedi Council that was formed, getting into some politics, the Jedi, Luke and the Jedi had some influence on Cal Omos becoming basically the leader of the Galactic Alliance. So that's something interesting too. So we'll have to expand on that a little bit more. That's a conversation within itself. Let me see. I'll try to find a cut video, but I did live stream that listening to all the new Jedi Order short stories, where to find them. Okay, so for the Ulysses one, is that what you're talking about? Now, for the knighting of the younger Jedi, like Jaina, Jason, you know, Tahiri, all of them. Again, they were already knighted. However, as a publicity stunt to show that, you know, to show the Jedi in a better light, I guess you can say, because a lot of anti-Jedi sentiment was out there. Peace Brigade, what the seeds planted by the Yuuzhan Vong, all of this other stuff. Let me see if I can find the video. I know I thought I made a short on that. Let me see here. YouTube. If Soul Assassin, and you're usually quick at finding it. I know I thought I made a clip of it. If you can find my clip of Luke knighting Jaina Solo, if you want to follow or find that for me, let's see here. That would be greatly appreciated. Save time on me looking. Just save time for me looking. Let's see here. See here. Boop, 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 boop. And we'll close it with that. So we have some interesting events coming up for this Destiny's Way. Again, get into some politics, and then also getting into Vergera and who she is, and all of that, what her mission was. And one thing is, like, you know, getting further into her story, when she discovered about the Vong and their purpose and stuff like that, instead of going back to warn the Old Republic, basically, and the Jedi, she decided to go with them. So that's very interesting. So we'll get more into that. That's all I'm going to say with that. I'll expand my thoughts on that once we get into that conversation. Let's see here. If I can find it, that would be great. Unless I'm not looking at the screen, at the comments right now. So if Soul Assassin heard me and found it, that would be great, and shared the link so I can grab it. But it's basically the knighting of Jaina. And I made a short video on it. The knighting of Jaina. Let's see here. I'm looking for it right now. I want to do that and then get into our cringe factor real quick. But let's see if I can find it. I don't know. Sword of the Jedi. I found. You're supposed to stop. There we go. I got it. I got him. Let me go ahead and stop sharing. There we go. And let me pull up the video here. All right. Oh, wrong one. Damn it, I lost it. Oh my god. Oh my goodness. Let me see if I remember where exactly I found it. Where is it? Damn it. I hate when that happens. It's like it randomly shuffles to a next short video. Let me see here. Where is it? That sucks. Oh my goodness. I just had it. Let me see if I can go back. It's not letting me. Damn it. Damn it. I'm like really showing myself scrolling. Ray recruit Poe, Finn, and some Mandos at Toby inclusive. To be inclusive. Where's the braid cutting? Let me see here. Let's see here. Ear. Darn it. Let's play this while I look for it. So you're not hearing me struggle. You're not hearing me like talk to myself and be like impatient and stuff. Let's go ahead, go here.
That's just a rumor that has kind of crawled up through fandom for years and years and years. I know that Tim met George Lucas. They had a sit-down conversation before the first book was done. I know that as with any of the novels, everything is cleared through Lucasfilm, and 100% for anything as major as a love interest being developed for Luke. That's a decision that George would have given a yes or no on.
All right. I can't find it. I lost it. Holy heck. I just had it too. Did you find it, Soul Assassin? Did you find it? Did you share it with me on Twitter? D? You mean DM? Is that what you mean? D or D as in I'm like failing? Like I'm failing like significantly. Let's see here. Chat. Let's see here. Well, I can't find it just right now, but I do have a video clip of her being knighted, and I am looking for Luke. It's a short of mine. Luke Skywalker knighting Jaina as the Sword of the Jedi. Oh, you was looking for Lucas' clip about stepping away from TCW? You're on a whole completely different mission than I am right now. That's crazy. No, I'm looking for the video. I just had it, and then I thought I paused it so that we could play it, and then it shuffled to a different video, and it didn't allow me to go back to the Jaina Solo video of her being knighted by Luke. And it's Destiny's way that they are that he's knighting them, but again, it's like a publicity stunt. That's how I've seen it, to show give the Jedi a good view, or have them give the audience or the Galactic Alliance a good view of the Jedi and stuff like that. And let me see here. Jaina Solo. Oh no, that's a different one. Merry Christmas. I wish I would have just had this ready to go. I wasn't even thinking about playing this short, so this is a last minute decision. And it's not letting me find it, but I know I have it. No, I do. No, I do. Let's see. I don't know. But there, I do have a short. I thought I'd play it before we segue into cringe factor. But it doesn't look like it's gonna happen. Sent it off. Okay, thank you. Oh my God, thank you so much. Let's see here. There we go. Sometimes I hate the internet, the browsers and stuff like that. People are like, Laura, get your shit together. Share screen. I'm working on it. Okay, would you Star Wars YouTube EU short? There we go. So since we are talking about this, I thought we paid homage to this.
I name you the Sword of the Jedi, you said. You are like tempered steel, purposeful and razor keen. Always you shall be in the front rank, a burning brand to your enemies, a brilliant fire to your friends. Yours is a restless life, and never shall you know peace, though you shall be blessed for the peace that you bring to others. Take comfort in the fact that, though you stand tall and alone, others take shelter in the shadow that you cast. Luke fell silent, and for a long, horrified moment, he stared into Jaina's wide-eyed face. He hadn't meant to say that. He hadn't meant to say anything like it. Yet the words had poured forth from him like the ringing sound of a giant bell, a bell that was being tolled not by Luke, but by someone else. I name you the Sword of the Jedi, you said. You were like tempered.
So hopefully you guys seen that. Let me see here. When you're ready, I have fellow artists to raid you to if you want to practice doing the raid. Otherwise, I'll just send it. Yeah, please send it for me because I will next week. I will do that when I'm actually on Rumble. All right, thank you so much. Let's see here. So the Sword of the Jedi. So basically, that's what this vision he got from the Force. Like the Force worked through Luke, and declared Jaina as someone significant, basically, to the Jedi. And her future, basically, we know that she creates a sister order to her uncle's order, or to basically the Jedi Order and stuff like that. So it's very, very interesting. Again, this continuity here that's was created that is very unique and makes the franchise very, very unique. Okay, remove. Now we're coming up on the hour, and I wanted to keep this within 2 hours. And so we are going to talk cringe factor a little bit, but we're not going to do very long. So let me see here. Jaina Solo, founder of the Imperial Knights, correct. Let's see here. Where is it at? Here we go.
So uncivilized.
So many of you guys have been keeping your eye on I guess you could say, the success of Star Wars under Disney, and rightfully so. Let me see. Am I frozen here? It looks like I'm frozen. Hopefully you guys can hear me. And rightfully so, especially if you've been longtime fans and you are interested in the direction like they're taking the lore and stuff. And of course, we're here talking more or less George Lucas era because we don't like the direction that, with the lore, because the EU was tossed. A lot of things that were established that was canon to the movies were discarded so they can have creative freedom. Sure, it's their business now, right? But now, and then also, what the company set with their own associates, going against the fans because they disagree with the direction or what have you. So we have that whole history here. And, we have this history of like even the Disney trilogy, turning people off to Disney Star Wars even more. And when do you think, for you, maybe, when do you think was the pivotal moment of your decision to not follow Star Wars under Disney anymore? And you can go ahead and answer that in the comments there. That's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. You know, everybody has the rights to what they want to like within a franchise, no matter what franchise it is, you know, and stuff. And but what was that? When was that point that made you? Did you come into it with a open, curious mind? Or did you like figure, oh, it's Disney, it's a corporate, and George has always spoken out about corporate, and why is he signing Lucasfilm off to a corporate? Was that your first turnoff? Or was you approaching it cautiously? Conrado says not reuniting the big three in one screen. Yeah, I've seen that with people not reuniting the big three when they started attacking the original fandom back when Rogue was released. Okay. Good morning to you, Holocron Library Fox. How are you doing? Nice to see you. Nice you are here hanging out. I asked that because there's always this pivotal moment. And like Tim said this earlier when he was here, that Matt Wilkins is the OG. The OG of defending the EU against Disney and talking against Disney when it comes to Star Wars. Like once he heard about it, he called that the EU was going to be tossed and all of that. So if you go through his Defending the Expanded Universe playlist, the whole time history of everything that he predicted and he's talked about and his defense of the EU is there. Well worth the listen through. Well worth the listen through. Now, for me, I was curious, but I wasn't happy. Did I give it a chance? Not really. But again, I was curious. You could still not agree, but still be curious on what's going to come, right? Once in April 2014 is when I was like, I'm done. I am done. But when you look into the history of like even looking at the treatments and stuff like that and how the treatments were tossed because JJ did not agree with that direction. He wanted to do his own story. And that's also documented because when you look at when they started writing, I guess you can say the screenplay after the buyout, you know, in 2013, when they started writing, like early 2013, when they started writing the screenplay, JJ did not agree with it. And so you see them now just tossing the treatments, right? And the treatments are a set of ideas, like set of story ideas, outline, timeline of the events for the sequel trilogy George created for Disney, created during the for the buyout negotiations and stuff like that. That's what really set forth the treatments and stuff like that. And so JJ wanted to do his own thing, and he did. And George was not happy because he's like, oh, he did the same thing. You know, so it's kind of like George's like acknowledging how it mirrored A New Hope. And he wasn't happy with it. And rightfully so. He wasn't happy with it. He has stated many times about his dissatisfaction with the direction as well. So with that, watching the franchise, watching it, seeing people respond to it, how it's loved by some and not by others, it's really been an experience. And then you have the anti-EU rhetoric. And these people are like, no, we're just defending George's standpoints, you know, prior to Disney. But then when you look at these people, in reality, they don't realize that they are defending Disney and their choice of dumping years and years of effort and contribution to the movies. And they think, oh, I'm gonna appeal to authority and defend George. It was never council. It was never canon. And so Disney didn't do anything wrong when they decided to toss. But then if it wasn't canon, then they wouldn't have a need to toss it for a clean slate. And they said that, oh, we want a clean slate. They said it in the statement. They want a clean slate. Now that tells me a clean slate. If it wasn't canon, they didn't have to worry about not having a clean slate because nothing would be in their way to produce new content under their own vision, right? So a clean slate means that, oh, they're getting rid of stories that can impede on their stories because those stories are already in place, but they want to do their own thing in that place, right? Meaning canon. It was canon. And that's the biggest thing right there. And like I said earlier, in the beginning of this show, when you get productions coming out, like movies, shows, more or less the visuals more than the written, right? You get this anti-EU rhetoric coming out, even by those who are just only saying, I'm just defending pre-Disney stuff and George Lucas, blah, blah, blah. And I think it's very disingenuous with these people in reality, because not only are they very ignorant to what they're doing, they're also buying into the Disney rhetoric. And so I'm calling that out. I've been calling this out for a very long time. And then you have these people like fence writers, like Star Wars Theory. You have Star Theory, and you have people like Echo Base Network, EBN, and stuff like that sit on this fence and realize that even sitting on this fence does harm to, and also offers harm to what came before, but offers defense to Disney. See how that goes? Offers harm from what came before and offers defense to Disney. Because saying and following that rhetoric, it was never canon, and that defends what Disney's doing. Oh, they're bringing it back into canon. Back into canon is another keyword. Back into canon. So admitting that they were canon before for George Lucas's movies when he owned the company, and now that they tossed it for creative freedom, clean slate, and bringing it back into what they perceive as their canon is very telling in itself. It was all canon, yes. And so you have this rhetoric. So when we get into the Mandalorian Grogu, now people have compared, and I have used numbers to compare Mandalorian and Grogu's opening numbers to Solo's. Now, mind you, Solo had a lot going on that behind the scenes had to be redone. So the cost of it went up because of that. But being something that has the label Star Wars on it, and a movie that had like no shows premiering in theaters for 7 years, you would think, and how they advertise Grogu and how everybody was like, oh my God, Grogu for the shows and stuff, and had fits over that character, you would think that it would have done well by itself. No, it hasn't. And that is the evidence of the state of Star Wars here today. Oh, have the mighty fallen. You would think that just by them and their own lore what they're doing for themselves, because they did a clean slate so they can tell their stories, rightfully so, like I said, that they can bring in the audience. They can bring in the audience. They really didn't. And what audience they brought in, yes, it brought in some money, but it's not like how it used to be. Not like how it used to be under George Lucas, when he, like, even like those who are like, oh, the PT was horrible, they still brought in the money. Now, bringing in the money, what does that mean? Does that mean the show is popular? Not necessarily. But when you have a show that's geared towards family, has a character that's geared towards kids, like Grogu, the wannabe Yoda bastard, you would think that the parents would want to bring their kids in. That it would be a success that way for the young audience, right? And many people was like, oh, well, George made Star Wars for 12-year-olds or whatever. Well, yeah, that's what he said. But he also said that, the kid in an adult, the kid in you can enjoy this because it has some moral aspects in it that you can relate to. It's timeless, right? So what happened to that timelessness? What happened to the timeless, to the moral stories, to the mythology? There's no more mythology there. They can't even keep their Mandalorian mythology straight. They can't keep it straight. It is now just a corporate entity that now is just about pushing movies out for the sake of the Star Wars label. That's what it is. And when you remove the heart, which is George Lucas, which he and his views and his rules and his guidelines and his mythologies had to be used and abided by when he owned the company by the creatives, whether it was in the book media, the comic media, the game media, even the show media. It was very well streamed under George Lucas, the heart, because the heart was there. The heart was there. But when you cut the heart out, the entity can't survive as we know it. And it hasn't. It hasn't thrived in a sense of, what Star Wars is and for and about. And this show, it reveals that. I'm not saying lore-wise or anything, but just this quote-unquote success. Now, if you liked it, good for you. I'm happy for you. That's cool. I sailed the high seas and got to watch it. It's not even worth it. Honestly, no way. No way. It felt like just scenes glued together and strategically in a sense, but poorly too, to get you through the show. They dropped the plot so many damn times in it. Oh, but it's fun. That's what it's about. It's supposed to just be fun. You're supposed to go in there to watch it because it's fun. On IMAX. On IMAX. Again, if you liked it, you went and watch it, sure. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy yourself. It's all good. But the state of Star Wars, under corporate, it's not thriving. It's not like the heart is gone. It's gone. And so many people, like, I want to say so many people, but those YouTubers that have built their channels on defending what is true Star Wars and wanting, like, and saying, oh, don't give them your money, don't go watch this if you don't like this, blah, blah, blah. Well, They're doing exactly what they said they like preaching to you not to go do. And that's contributing to Star Wars, Disney Star Wars, more than what they're preaching. So basically, they're not practicing what they preach, right? They're not practicing what they are preaching. And it's very evident here. They will go and defend one thing because, oh, the hopium, Star Wars needs to be saved. Then too, when something comes out that they didn't like, oh, Star Wars is dead, but they still contribute to it. That's the hypocrisy of that. That's the hypocrisy of that. And you see that with a lot of these bigger channels. You see that, oh, I watch this so you don't have to. Sure, okay. But what are you saying? Are you telling us not to support, but then you went ahead and watched it to let us know not to support it? Just use vouchers, then you're not supporting Disney. So you're watching it to telling us not to support it, but you're also watching so you can tell us not to support it. I know. I had to go there. But it's the truth. Now, am I telling you like, oh, well, if you don't like it, don't talk about it? No. You have every right to talk about what you like and what you don't like. So don't fall for those Disney shield tactics. Just like I'm here talking about the state of Star Wars. I don't care for the direction Star Wars is taking. That's me. And if you disagree with me, that's fine. We're not a hive mind here, right? We might have a common ground on not liking the direction it's gone. That's cool. That's perfectly fine. If you gave it a hope at one point and now you're disappointed and you're like, I'm done. Hey, that's your prerogative. But what I'm talking about is the grift. I guess you could say the quote unquote grift. And I think now that is an overplayed word. Like a lot of these words get overplayed now. It's like not even funny anymore. But there's this grift. Just like the grift of the anti-EU people. Every time another show comes out from Disney, that rhetoric is repeated and repeated. And they think, oh, well, I'm not defending Disney Star Wars because George didn't support it either. Bullshit. Bull fucking shit. You are playing into the same device that Disney has started. You're not here to value George's word, because if you value George's word, then you would also acknowledge like where he said that basically the novels and stuff, basically the EU, contributed towards the saga, was a part of the saga. You can find everything you need to know in the Star Wars encyclopedias that have 5,000 characters and ships and vehicles and stuff. So he talks about all of that because the movies didn't create 5,000 characters. It didn't create a broader expansion of like the world behind the universe, the galaxy of Star Wars. The EU contributed to that. He used it to world build. He himself has linked the EU to the movies. He himself has approved of linking the EU to the movies. He himself has said the movies and basically the EU are a part of one saga. Has he ever used the word canon? And I've said this many times and before, Twitter here, on YouTube, and now maybe a few times here on Rumble now, since Rumble I'm back on Rumble now on a regular basis as well with my videos. But he has never used the word canon. And Sewer Stoney pointed out that it is easier to say continuity than to refer to canon when they're talking about the overall lore. And that, I'm paraphrasing a statement she made about canon versus continuity. And that was their focus. Now, was George beholden to it all? No, but he wasn't beholden to his movies either. And I've talked about this in the beginning of the video. Creator's prerogative, right? And the authors knew that there might have been an opportunity of their stories being retconned to where they're not canon anymore. That never happened. So when quotes are used now of George saying, that's not how I would have done it. Well, he didn't. So they're irrelevant. At the time, yes, it was relevant. He said, maybe that's not how I would have done it. But my defense to that is, or my counter to that is, not everybody's going to write exactly the same. You're going to give a directive on how these characters should go. You're going to give a directive lore and continuity direction, I guess you could say, and how it's supposed to be with the mythologies and an idea of George's vision. But no one's going to write the characters exactly the same. And you can even see how that happens in the EU. You could tell a Timothy Zahn's Luke versus I would say, let's go ahead and use another author, but let's go ahead and use Kevin J. Anderson. You can tell the difference in writing, just like you can tell the difference in artists on how they do their creations. Like every artist has a certain look to the art that you can tell it comes from them. And you can see that with Monet versus Van Gogh. Same with writing. So of course, George, that's not exactly how I would do it. But when you look at the treatments, and again, the treatments are irrelevant because they were never used, they were never made. They don't predict canon, none of that. But when you look at the ideas for the treatments, Luke's returning back to create the Jedi Order again. So he's keeping his promise to Yoda. Leia is coming in and reestablishing the Republic, the New Republic. And she becomes the leader, the Chancellor. She does that in the EU as well. Her and Han get married. That happens in the EU. They have kids. That happens in the EU. So there's a lot of mirroring of his ideas to the EU. Right? So the direction of Disney. The heart is gone. And I wouldn't say corporate is a heart. Corporate entity is not a heart. Having Filoni as the president with a co-president in there that worked under George Lucas as well is not, like, I wouldn't even consider that an implant. I wouldn't even consider that an implant because they're now operating under the ownership of Disney, whereas George was the owner. There's a huge difference. They have to do and say and be and produce how Disney wants them to. So the heart's not there. And what is that saying? Don't take imitation. I probably said it. I'm probably paraphrasing, right? You know what? Imitation. Filoni's an imitation. There, I said it. Filoni's a fucking imitation. And I have never cared for Filoni from the beginning. Again, there are some episodes of TCW I liked. I thought they were fun. I guess you could say, oh, fun. But overall, TCW, I think, has been a train wreck. Right. So, yeah. So, Mandalorian and Grogu is a continued evidence of the direction, the failure under Disney for Star Wars. They say that you can't catch lightning in a bottle twice. George Lucas' Star Wars was that lightning in the bottle. Disney can't do that. And should you expect them to do that? That's the bigger question. Should you expect them to do that? No. But you should expect some consistency, some celebration of what came before, right? No, they tossed the EU. How can that be celebration of what came before when you're cherry picking characters to put in a lore continuity that they don't fit in? That's not celebration. That's bastardizing. That is bastardizing to the max. To the max. And then you have like Leland Shee and others, like especially Pablo Hidalgo, and even Timothy Zahn, that changed their direction of being pro George Lucas and what is canon to the movies and stuff versus the buyout and then them changing directions. Changing those directions. And I know I said we were going to end here soon, but we're not. We aren't. Let me see here. I want to find something here. I want to bring up something. Because going into the anti-EU rhetoric, this is now going to be used as another anti-EU rhetoric, which basically Leland's not confirming the EU wasn't canon to George or otherwise. But I'm going to bring it up and we're going to end with this. Because again, that rhetoric is still going. Now, right here, this is pretty cool. This shares like an EU character being the mascot of the production during the Revenge of the Sith. That's pretty cool. Leland gives a huge, like, not a huge, but he explains that and then the making of the X-Wing and stuff like that. So we have someone, so this is like from the Revenge of the Sith by J.W. Rensler. All the concept artists came to regard as a heroic horse pilot above whose specially designed X-Wing was created by Alex Yeager as their mascot. Actually, a character from the Star Wars expanded universe, horse pilot became the battle cry during the late nights and inspirational design marathons. So the picture also pictured is Warren Fu. So he gives this information here, and runt art by Michael Stuffin from the New Essentials Guide to Characters 2002. So he's sharing this little fun tidbit of the creative minds behind Revenge of the Sith and what they used as their mascot to push him through those late nights. And let's see here. What am I looking for? Where is it? I know it's in here somewhere. So we have, let me see here. Was the comment deleted? So I don't see the reply there no more. Usually replies are underneath and you can expand on that. Did he take the reply down? Did Leland take the reply down? Let me go ahead and pull up a screenshot of that then. So I'll find it on Twitter X. Let's see here. Let's see here. You know, it's on Discord. I'll pull it up on Discord. It's easier to find, so I don't have to scroll all the way to where I need to find it. But you'll see what I'm talking about, because everybody's looking to find out what George really thought about the EU being canon. And even though there's plenty of evidence that George seen it as a part of the saga. And yes, George never used the word canon, and Lucasfilm basically never used the word canon either, only when fans were talking to them. So there's this huge difference with that. Let me see here. Here it is. All right. Let me bring that up here. Let me close this. But this is going to be used as now another anti-EU rhetoric. So Buzzy, I do have him, like he does follow me on Twitter, and he asks, Leland, there's something I hope you can answer. George's G-canon versus expanded universe. The fans of the EU have said that G-canon and the rest of the EU was always canon to George, but then there are fans like myself who believe that the canon to George was whatever he approved of in G-canon, and the EU was allowed for marketing, etc., but not his story of Star Wars, that of what officially happened, which is correct. So he's asking this question here, and it's very, very telling to me that there's misunderstanding here on canon. And even Leland has stated that the G and C canon, or G and C, had a hierarchy that they keep track of in-house. Those are canon to each other, canon with each other, and exist with each other. And, you know, everybody likes to make it sound like George is separate from his company, and he's not. So Leland says, the G-canon terminology was a construction created by licensing specifically for the holocron, so basically in-house. I never had a discussion with George about it. I've heard him publicly talk about pillars. So, you know, the pillars, the Father, the Son, and blah, 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 which he basically, the pillars are basically those divisions on where those medias were made, right? So the Father is him, the Son is Howard with licensing, and the Spirit, I guess you could say, or whatever, are the fans. So the fans having their own canon, I guess you could say, or their fan fiction, I guess you could say, that George allowed fans to have fun and make their own fan fiction of Star Wars under certain guidelines and stuff that they had to adhere to. And then you had licensing Rothman, the son, who is expanding off the stories of the Father. So continuing on the stories of the continuity in the canon. And so basically he said, I never discussed with George Lucas about it. I've heard him publicly talk about the pillars, but how that equates with the holocron's canon system, I can only guess. I have very little firsthand knowledge of his exposure to the EU after I joined. So he joined in 2000. Licensing beyond him being a fan of much of the artwork, sometimes engaging with the game teams. So sometimes there's a lot of engagement with the game teams, and working with authors on novelizations of his films. And that's also included those novels that are not of his films, like Labyrinth of Evil. He spoke with and then also New Jedi Order. He spoke with licensing Howard Rothman regularly, but as far as I know, those conversations generally were one way. So Howard Rothman, when George was busy, unavailable, Howard Rothman was the person to go to for authors and other creators that were brought in by Lucasfilm. So he was the one George had set in place for as a stand-in for him for the authors. That's what that was about. George's vision of Star Wars was rather whatever was in George's head at any given time. So his vision doesn't mean canon. Vision is like ideas, like, oh, I can do this or that or what have you. And his vision, when he met with authors and gamers, also, you know, came through those creations. That's why he authorized some things to happen and he vetoed other things. Like Luke wanting to be killed in New Jedi Order, he said nope. He offered Leia and Han And they're like, we can't do that. So they all agreed on Chewie. So his vision. So in his vision of Luke, if Luke was dead, then how could he carry on his arc later on? Get it? And maybe kept personal notes somewhere. I have no idea. So none of this shares that the EU wasn't canon to George. George did have ideas in his head, a vision for Star Wars, which basically expanded outwardly into the company. Now, was it how, like, the approach of some authors, would he have written it that way? Probably not. But like I said earlier, not everybody writes the same or perceive characters the same way. So I just wanted to close with this. Keep an eye out. We have like what's the next movie that's supposedly be coming out? The Star what's it called again? I forget the name of it. But I was gonna say Stargate. That's not it. But anyways, Starfighters. There you go. We have those coming out. Just take a look. Sit back and take a look at the rhetoric, that what's going to be planned, what people are going to be going to say, the anti-EU rhetoric that's going to come out. George didn't support his own company, duh, right? And then he loved passing out non-canon materials at Christmas parties. I know, right? Oh my goodness. Okay, my question is, why didn't Leland Shee leave? I don't know. I have no idea. I should ask him. I should ask him for an interview. That would be fun. If Star Wars Legacy means anything, the real Luke, Han and Leia, Quinlan Vos, Cordo Vos, and others passed away eventually. Yeah, they did. Disney Star Wars is symbol of what happens, wasted effort, ruins on legendary creators' work by their incompetence. And we'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that. So we're going to come to a close now. Thank you guys for joining me. State of Star Wars. It doesn't look so bright. But if you like it, you do. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you guys again for tuning in for CAF Chat. Enjoy your George Lucas era of Star Wars. Be curious on what's coming out and watch the rhetoric. Watch all this stuff that comes out on key on what the shills are saying versus what the anti-EU people are saying. It's all there. It's all there. It is all there. So with that being said, you guys have a great day, and may the Force be with you. And I will see you next Thursday on Rumble.
I love you.
I know.
I'm telling you, this finale, it's unbelievable how tepid contemporary art seems compared to the passionate quality of this finale. So you have this like huge, like it's like romantic nature painting, apocalyptic landscape of the lava. Lucas cross-cuts the destruction of the Senate chamber, and you have the destruction of industry going on. And then, after all these horrors, it is so beautiful. I'm saying, oh my God, nothing in the last 30 years in any of the arts has been produced as emotionally compelling and significant as the finale of Revenge of the Sith.
Another happy landing.